I am a product of Anacostia, born and raised in Anacostia. And I started this involvement in this city as a very young person, born in Anacostia. And I think what I can reflect on then, a feeling as a young person of being in a community that was very rich in terms of relationships and family and community, but isolated, even on this side of the river, from the white community in one part and us in a very small pocket within sort of the middle, around the middle of the area, on Good Hope Road and Martin Luther King Avenue, which was Nicholas Avenue. I also remember that my first real involvement in structuring and doing things was with the church. St. Philip's Church, which was on Shannon Place, the street I was born on, got me engaged, and my brother and a lot of us engaged in regional politics, because the Episcopal Church had a regional government. So that was our first involvement, and we began to see other parts of both the city and the region and get a sense that we were a different but a part of a very, very complex community. As a result of that growth and my involvement in school and leadership positions and activities, I realized that I wanted to be able to have a voice that would help and could help people in my community. And that's when I realized, from high school, student government positions, et cetera, and military ROTC, that being in a leadership position was critical. So I began to wait and see when we would get more elected government in the District of Columbia. I was fortunate enough to have a leaning towards computers and technology, which I built upon. And as a result of that, doing some work as consultant and programmer and analyst, I got a job working at the Washington Technical Institute, which was the first two-year program school that was established here, which I found that I was dealing with young people and young adults who were in the industry but were trying to advance beyond their current positions. It was really interesting because computers put people out of work, like we find people out of work now, particularly in the black community and our community, and computers was a vehicle that got them back into the job market in paying jobs that were really respectable and meaningful to them. And I ran for school board, as you mentioned. I filed both at large and from Ward 5, because I lived then in a home I purchased in Ward 5. And the interesting thing about it was I was then involved with Marion, who was running for school board, and he did win. I did not. I lost in the runoff. And I always say, when you often lose in politics, you advance yourself, because I went to law school then and was able to stabilize myself and get involved in the educational process at WTI and go to law school, get a law degree, and also go back then into politics when we finally got home rule. And I always believed that government and politics was local and grassroots. So I started an organization called the Referendum Committee. And even though there were citywide efforts trying to get us the support of the Congress and the public for home rule, I was able to get meetings in small places, in lobbies of apartment buildings, in the street. We traveled all over the city, organizing small groups of people at a grassroots level to discuss home rule and this referendum that was before the Congress. And we were successful in getting that. So in '74, we got, many of us know, we got our first home rule. And I was blessed to be with a bunch of activists on the council: Julius Hobson, Willie Hardy, Nadine Winters, and Doug Moore, many people, Jim Cole, people who were really community activists and were driven by community activist stuff. Things had not gotten so structured as they might be now, and as complicated as they are now. But the activism that was on the council then was very, very special. So I was able to run for that and got elected. I ran in Ward 4, which was completely very different than the community I grew up in. And I can only recall when I first got elected and had a home. I just moved to a new home in the ward, and moved up into Upper Northwest, up into Rock Creek Park area. I was very blessed to get a home there. And they wouldn't let me join the Civic Association because they said, "Who is this guy?" And they said, "Well, he's over in Southeast," but managed to get past that, became very much involved, and loved my work as a council member for 2 terms in Ward 4, and also then finally running as chairman of the council. First introduced piece of legislation was a resolution to establish a statehood commission, structure that would have the directive of the city to raise funds and to go after a stronger effort for statehood and self-determination. And it was embraced, of course, warmly by the council, and we began to implement it. And there, shortly after, I think a little while later, the Congress, as you know, passed a restriction on the city raising money privately or government money to try to help with statehood. Just as we got elected to council, the metro was being put in place. One of the big projects of the federal city council, they were very strongly behind it. And I remember General Graham, who was then the first person to be in charge of that, took us for a tour of the tunnels. And he used to ride the tunnels on a motorcycle. He's a real hands-on guy. It's one of the first things that the organization that I spend a lot of my time with in Anacostia now, the Anacostia Coordinating Council, which I've chaired now for over 22 years, was started by George Curtis. It was his vision, George Curtis of Curtis Brothers in the big chair, George's vision of having an organization like the Coordinating Council to help bring things together. Their first focus was to get the metro station at the Anacostia Metro Station here in Anacostia, because we were one of the last to get a station. And it has become and will become even more and more a very powerful force to have metro here. So yeah, I was a supporter of the metro.